everybody, it's Kenny K again, here with another flick. A movie that I saw only once, and I seen yesterday because they said it's basically a ripoff of Jaws, and I'm a big fan of Jaws. And I had a movie called, a movie that was only in Europe available because Universal just sued the shit out of those producers of that movie, The Last Jaws. You know that movie? It's now free on YouTube. But in Europe, there were these gray area copies for sale, and eventually I got hold on one, a German version, and actually a pretty decent ripoff of Jaws. But this one's called Grizzly from 1976. So Jaws came out in 75, directed by a guy named William Gindler. Don't know who he is, don't know what he did. But you got Christopher George, as park ranger Kelly. And then you've got Dom, the helicopter pilot. Also the guy who, he was an ex-soldier in Vietnam. And you got Scott, or Scotty, who's the guy who knows everything about the wildlife in the forest area. He tags animals and things like that. And basically you've got your Quint, Brody, and your Hooper, right? Kelly is basically Brody. Don is basically Quint, because he's always teasing Scott, and Scott is Hooper, And then you've got Mayor Vaughn, which is Kid Riddy. He's the supervisor of the park, and that's your Mayor Vaughn. And that's the guy, so it's basically the same premise as Jaws, and actually now I see it, and back then I didn't see it. How stupid am I? Because it's not like years ago that I see this movie. I seen this movie once, and I liked it because it had some cool gory scenes, because it's a horror movie with thriller suspense, which is like Jaws. It's like Jaws has thriller moments, suspense moments, but also horror moments. So it's basically the same deal, the same genres. But it's basically the same story. Instead of a shark, you got a grizzly, apparently a prehistoric grizzly that's 15 foot high, because a normal grizzly can only go to 7 feet high. And this one made it since the prehistoric era, and survived all this time by mating and then creating a new one. And this animal, takes claim over this piece of park, this piece of forest, and kills everybody who goes in there. Like the shark in Jaws claims the waters around Amity Island and kills everybody who goes in the water. And the mayor doesn't want the beaches closed, and the supervisor doesn't want the forest closed. But it look like Brody in Jaws he had more backlash. He had the mayor and the city officials. Kelly is Christopher George, Kelly, the park ranger. He looked like he didn't give a fuck what Kid Riddy said. The supervisor said he didn't give a fuck. He said it's my park, it's my forest, it's my domain. I do what I want. It's like that. He had that kind of attitude. And it's the first time I saw a Christopher George movie where I know him from, you know, Pieces. I know him from City of the Living Dead, or the Gate, aka The Gates of Hell. Probably some more movies, but he's always this side character, and you never see him completely flourish. And in this movie, you can see him completely flourish. He's actually a good actor. He played a good, you know, a solid park ranger that was basically over his head in a way, with this grizzly. Uh, but tried everything in his power to do to catch him. At some point, you have his park rangers going after it, and one of the park rangers does something stupid. She says, "Oh, I'm gonna just dip my feet there on this stream of water, you know, a waterfall," and she's just gonna dip her feet in the water because she probably has sore feet. She just takes off all her clothes, just goes underneath the waterfall, and in the waterfall, behind the waterfall, the grizzly is there and tears her to pieces. And then you see like the gore you see are like arms being ripped off, a leg being ripped off. You see the faces with scratches and bites in, and so you got those gore scenes in there. And that was when the water was flowing, the water became red, and but what the fuck was that? So that was in her mind dipping her feet in the water, taking her clothes off, in the middle of a search for a killer um, grizzly bear, because the reason why they are searching for it is because he already killed two hikers, two female hikers, and ripped them to shreds. And she's going there, you know. Also, this movie, what kind of bothered me was everybody has a gun in this movie. So all the park rangers, at some point, the supervisor hires these hunters, but it's not hunting season anymore. You've got all these drunken hillbillies that probably would shoot their own friends, probably shoot their own balls off. You know what I mean? You got these amateur hunters that never hunted before, and then you got a few good hunters in there, and there's this. So at this point, you've got the park rangers with rifles, and you've got the hunters. Now, one hunter comes across the grizzly, drops the gun down, and just runs away. Okay, nobody takes a shot at the bear until somewhere at the 50-minute mark, where one of the park rangers that Kelly was really befriended with, he was also befriended with the female park ranger that dipped her toes in the water, but just went completely naked in the waterfall. He had his job was to keep an eye on this, you know, out this observation tower, you know, this wooden observation tower to catch wildlife and birds and whatever, and you have a high ground to see. But then the grizzly is coming, and the grizzly is basically destroying the entire the beams and all the shit, and he fires 3 rounds. I'm thinking he hit the bear, then it stops for a while, then it just goes back. It's clearly that these light artillery rifles don't do jack shit to this prehistoric 15-foot grizzly, right? So he gets killed eventually, and like I said, and they keep using Instead, so then you got Scotty. He's the guy. He disguises himself in a bear suit, and he goes around, and he can. That's how he can get close to animals and this and that. And Don, he's in the helicopter pilot, and basically they work together at some point. They work together at some point to catch the grizzly, but Scott doesn't want to kill it. He wants to tranquilize it, and he made this bullet, which has a tip. The tip of the bullet is with a really potent tranquilizer. But Don, the helicopter pilot, being a soldier in Vietnam, he said that wouldn't penetrate even a human, let alone a fucking grizzly of 15 feet high. And he's looking, and it's like he doesn't want to kill it. That's just what he wants. Because at some point he just goes on his own, and he wants to track it, tranquilize it, and get it back in a enclosed cage to examine. Now at this point, the hunters that they failed miserably. They can't. The grizzly is really smart. You have that the grizzly, like, they're following the grizzly, but it's going in a circle and then getting behind them and then attacking somebody else that's waiting for the hunters there, people with no weapons, and then kill them. There's even a boy that gets mauled, and his leg is bitten off, and you see this. That's pretty ballsy to do, but eventually his mom comes in between, but she gets completely ripped to pieces. He survives the boy with one leg, and his mom dead, of course. The thing is that Kelly had much more to say than Roy Scheider did, Brody had in Jaws. Kelly, the park ranger, had all his park rangers, like 10 people, all with rifles, and then the supervisor. He wanted the park open. He wanted the press to be there. He wanted to make this. He wanted to make carnival out of it, and eventually, when he sees the kid and he sees the decapitation of the leg, he kind of is disgusted by himself, and then he says, "Okay, the camera team goes, and just you go and kill it." Okay, and then he backs off, and Kelly and Don, the helicopter pilot, Scotty is on his own. They go after it. Now Scotty is, at some point Scotty is the first to encounter it. He gets attacked, and what the grizzly does, he kills you, and then he throws you in a pit, buries you, and then comes back later to eat you. But this is such a weird scene. What happens here is, so he's not dead yet, and he's alive, and you'll think, oh, that's because I like Scotty. I like Scott. He was he was kind of a funny guy, and he was the only one who, was the rational minded one. How this grizzly MO was of hunting, but he gets, well, at least he killed, but then he survives, and he's crawling out of that hole just to be killed again because the bear is behind him, and that we don't see a second attack, we see the bear evaporating as like a mirage, and then we see Kelly with a rifle coming towards him, and then we see goes to the helicopter. Kelly and Don, sitting next to each other, and Don's talking about Scotty, that he liked the guy. He was teasing him, but that was just because I liked him, and so I'm guessing. It was a weird scene, so I'm guessing the bear killed him. Gave him a final blow, but he could. I don't understand, because the bear was obviously not intimidated by these light artillery armed weapons, this artillery rifles, because they didn't hurt him. And we see this at some point, and this is the most stupid point. That I like Don. He was this Texan guy. When I went to Vietnam, we called them Googs. I had to call them Googs, because if you call them the Vietnamese, then we saw them as people. We couldn't handle that, killing people, so we had to call them Googs. And he was talking like that, and he was always there to help and to lend out a hand, and he had weapons, and he had the helicopter, and then he knows how to hunt too, and eventually they land at a patch where the grizzly is somewhere in that area. Still, I don't know what happened with Scotty. I still don't understand that scene, that the bear is behind him. The bear evaporates, and then you see Kelly coming towards him, and then they're in the helicopter. So I'm guessing he died off screen, and Kelly found him dead. That's the only thing that I can figure out. That was not a well done scene. And the ending was also a little bit stupid, because the helicopter, the grizzly comes to the helicopter, trashes the helicopter. Don and Kelly are divided. Don has a 3-shooter, fires 3 rounds. He has a gun with 3 rounds. He fires 3 rounds at it. He keeps coming. Then Kelly has a choice. Now here comes the kicker. He has a choice of 2 weapons: a rifle with a scope on it, or a fucking bazooka. Which one would you take to kill that animal? Because we see that regular artillery firearms don't work. He takes the scoped rifle, of course, and he starts to shoot at it. 7 rounds, completely empty. And at that time, he's already holding Don like this and squeezing him and breaking him and biting at him and clawing at him, and he's coughing up blood, and he's dead. Instead of taking the fucking bazooka first, shooting the bazooka immediately, because Don was still at a safe distance. Maybe would jump away or something, or fly away a little bit, but he wouldn't die. Now he takes the bazooka when Don gets killed, and then he takes the bazooka. That's the thing in this movie. I didn't understand why nobody had like a bazooka or like a rifle with explosive tip bullets or something, or these big these big ass 2-barrel shotguns that if, like in Tremors, Bird had, the elephant gun. He did the big ass 2-barrel shotgun that just shoots a big ass hole. And he, a tremor only needed 2 shots of that thing to die. The tremor worm. No, they all had the same, like 7 point, what the hell, 50 caliber, 7.5 caliber, whatever. They all had the same kind of rifles, and they didn't work. They didn't phase the bear. The skin, the skin was too thick. But he had a fucking bazooka. So that was a really downbeat ending for me. You know, but it's like in Jaws. In the original script, Hooper dies and Quinn dies. So only Brody survives. So in this case, Kelly survives. Maybe this director took the original script and let the 2 other guys die, and Kelly, Brody survive. But and then the movie ends and you have the credits. But the movie was good, but at some time there were times that the pacing was a little bit slow. But the acting of Christopher George was actually pretty good. It's the first time I saw him in a complete as a main character, and his acting is pretty good. He's an underrated actor. I think he's an underrated actor. He held his own. Yeah. I liked Scott, the nature connoisseur. You know, he was always eating a sandwich when they were talking. It was funny. And then Don, you know, with that Texas accent, you know, you look like a midget with a frog hat, you know, something like that. You look like a midget with a frog hat. He said that to Scott. He was also always teasing Scott, but that was Quinn doing to Hooper too. But at the end, he respected Hooper, and in this case, Don respected Scott too, because he just did that because he liked him. But the ending is all over the place. Like I said, he seemingly dies, but then he survives, and then comes back to die again. But then this whole mirage thing that the bear is there, and then it dissipates, and then you have Kelly coming towards him with a gun, and I don't understand what happened there. And that stupid decision that he had a fucking bazooka in a chopper, but he used the light arm gun, light arms gun, you know, light artillery gun, and it's proven because we see Don shooting 3 bullets at point blank range in the bear, but doesn't have. So take the fucking bazooka, Kelly. Take the fucking bazooka, Christopher George. So, what are the positives? I liked the acting of the trio, the trio we get here. The trio of Jaws. We got a good trio here. You know, Park Ranger Kelly, Helicopter Don, and then Animal Tagger and Nature Connoisseur Scotty. I liked his acting. Kid Bidley, the supervisor, he's the dickhead, but he had to. That's his role, being a dickhead. So you know he's gonna be the dickhead, and he knows he's gonna be wrong at some point, and he knows he's gonna be okay, you're right, and this and this and that, but at what cost? And there are a lot of kills. There are a lot of kills, like I said, like those female hikers in the beginning. A camp gets attacked, or a woman dies. I think some rangers, two rangers die. I think a few hunters die. I mean, there are a lot of kills in this movie, but sometimes the pacing was a little bit slow. They were thinking, okay, what they did like 3 or 4 or even 5 strategies. Now we go there, you go there, and we go there. Okay, that didn't work. Somebody died. Okay, now we go there, there, and there. That didn't work because there somebody died there. Now we go there. You know what I mean? And that was a little bit tedious at some point. Really tedious. It got tedious. And that's the only real complaint. And the ending was stupid. The ending with Scott, what happened with Scott, and then with the Mirage Bear, like, and then Kelly coming, appearing out of nowhere, and then instead of taking the bazooka and saving his friend Don, no, he doesn't. He takes this light arms gun, rifle. But the acting, so those were the negatives. That it was a little bit tedious and sometimes too long, and sometimes too repetitive, and also it got sometimes a little bit boring too. But the acting of, like I said, Christopher George, that guy Don, and Scott, those were, I like those actors, especially Christopher George. Now seeing him in a complete role, in the main guy in a main role, actually it surprised me. Yeah. So yeah, this movie gets a let's say 5.5 out of 10 for me. You should see it. It is a good movie, but Jaws had more. If you're gonna compare it with Jaws had more. I don't know. It had more going on with it. Like the characters here, it's like these 3 characters, Kelly, Scott, and Dom, were the only ones that acted. Those were the people you wanted to see, and in Jaws, everybody was on point with their acting, and in Jaws, small things happened, like finding the teeth in the boat and finding Ben Garner's head, and explaining what killed Chrissy Watkins, and then Hooper, arguing with Mayor Vaughn. And there was a lot more, that going on, and this was, yeah, just those 3 guys, and then a bunch of park rangers and a bunch of redneck hunters. In any case, it's worth a watch, definitely. 5.5 for me is always worth a watch. It's cool to see Christopher George in a big role, to see him act. He's a pretty good actor, actually. That's what I think. So yeah, that's Grizzly for you. So subscribe and see you next time. Boop. Ah.